Okay, the stream's off to quite a rough start, but here's what's happening. Okay, the 5D Chess World Championship is currently being played. We were in it. We were eliminated last week to Dreamer, but who is playing right now in the semifinals, so top 4 right now, which is really exciting, is Dreamer and Cirtus. I've been asked to commentate the match. I started stream a few minutes late due to technical difficulties, so we missed the very beginning of the game. But this is game 1. We're kind of hopping into it halfway through. I'm going to be commentating. I'm not playing right now, but this is kind of like the some of the highest stakes 5D chess that's ever been played. So what we're going to do is view this together. Right now, this is game 1. We're not too far into it, as you can see in the top here. This is Cirtus's perspective. David, thank you so much for the gift sub. I appreciate it so much. We're watching Cirtus's side. He's playing with the black pieces. Dreamer is playing with the white pieces. So the format is they strike down to decide which of the 5 variants in the tournament can be played. There's turn 0, reverse royalty, princess, half reflected, and defended pawn. It seems that they're playing reverse royalty, which is awesome. I'm envious. Reverse royalty is my favorite variant. And we're just gonna jump into this here. Okay, let's see what's happened here. Again, Cirtus playing with the black pieces, Dreamer's playing with the white pieces. They play one game, then they switch colors, play another, then they play another variant. If after those 4 games, there isn't a decisive victor, someone hasn't taken 3 games, then they go to play a third set, which is like a tiebreak set. We'll get into that when that happens. But right now, this is game 1, and it looks like we're off to quite a start. So both players appear to have started with like a sort of London type system where they get the dark squared bishop out and then they put, with this sort of pawn structure, which is interesting. There's this forward standing knight here that Cirtus has somehow developed as the black player, and that has not been kicked off of this square by Dreamer. Yet there's this knight here that's pressuring. It's interesting to see that Cirtus opted to trade here proactively. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, there's still, so reverse royalty in general, the development is much more slow because there aren't as many, crazy explosive degenerate plays. You can't really travel with the strongest piece in the game, which is the queen. Because the queen is, if you're not familiar with reverse royalty, the queen is the piece in this variant that you're trying to checkmate. So the king itself is just a regular piece that moves like a king, and you can trade it away. It can be taken, sacrificed, whatever. The queen, however, which is by far the strongest piece in the game in 5D chess, even more so than in regular chess, is both the strongest offensive piece and also the piece that you are attempting to defend. So in general, you don't have as many crazy bombastic plays because there aren't tactics that are easily sort of executable with the queen. So you get a sort of development of the minor pieces. Interesting. Okay. It's interesting. The last 2 moves are both interesting to me. I'm surprised that Cirtus wasn't sort of content with keeping the tension there, because if Dreamer trades in, then there's like no piece. White doesn't have a piece looking at d4 and can't get one that easily if this trade happens, and you pressure with either the bishop or the pawn this knight on c3, which is like c3 is like the f6 of reverse royalty, right? Much less explosive. You should have seen our games with Mage. Sarp is here. Hey Sarp, how's it going? Wow, I'm so flustered. Okay, interesting that this has happened. Okay, so Dreamer now, as a result of everything that just happened, Dreamer has the bishop pair, which I think is actually pretty good. I mean, knights are really dangerous in 5D chess, but at the end of the day, ooh, okay. So Cirtus spots that like a travel is possible here. This bishop on c4 can sack on c7. I didn't get a look. Unfortunately, there's no spectator client like sort of built into the 5D chess client, the standalone 5D chess client. So all we can do is watch Cirtus's perspective, so we can't sort of like roam freely. And I would have liked to have looked at that travel for a bit longer, I think. But what's going on here? Okay, doubled pawns. Not fantastic. The dreamer can kind of like attack them immediately. He might be evaluating travels here. I think black's pieces are much better positioned here. It's difficult to contest this bishop. I think the bishop pair is really good in a situation like this where it's difficult for the black. I don't know why that just did that. Hello? We'll get the stream back. Okay, there's going to be some technical difficulties, but we'll manage. We'll make do. Sir? Could I please? Okay, there we go. All right, so apparently don't click the screen, otherwise everything will be ruined, which is good to know. That's Peppo G. Okay, yes, so I anticipated bishop b2 here, frappuccinoing the dark square bishop. Yeah, so it's difficult for Cirtus now. He can't really defend this pawn, can he? Without introducing like critical vulnerabilities on his queen side, especially given the fact that that Dreamer's got the bishop pair here. So this is interesting. Hey, Poison, how's it going? Sonoy's here too. Everybody's here. Oh man. Okay. Wow. Off to a roaring start here. Okay, this is interesting. In general, this sort of like the f7, or sorry, c7 in this case, travel that you saw earlier, that was possible like last turn rather than the bishop b2 here that Cirtus hovered over briefly for Andre. Oh, maybe actually it would be better because of the way I have like muscle memory now as a streamer to make sure that my window when I'm playing 5D chess kind of has all of the important information not where my camera is. So I might have to move my camera around a little bit to, you know, make sure that to make sure that it's like viewable, that you guys can see the pieces, what's going on here. Ryan's here. Who else is rooting for Cirtus? I'm rooting for 5D chess. Okay, so we get the quick checkout from Cirtus and then the immediate block, which I think is good, right? So before, what I was saying is I was kind of surprised. I'd have to go back and look at the position to evaluate sort of tactically what's going on, but I think that trading the knight like proactively on Cirtus's part wasn't necessarily a fantastic move, simply because it enables, like, the recapture actually develops. So here's the thing. Okay, there isn't like that much theory in reverse royalty. Maybe I'll pull myself over here, and then let's flip ourselves over. Okay, so this piece right here, the Common King, seems just sort of like on paper like it would be pretty bad, at least like from a 2D chess perspective. I think that it's probably inferior to the other minor pieces, probably. In 5D chess though, like the mobility of it across like sort of triagonals and quadragonals is actually makes it an amazing piece both defensively and offensively. The only issue is that it's slow. It's like it sort of lacks in mobility, right? But kind of every single move where you can develop the Common King is actually really valuable. Like as soon as it crosses the sort of like halfway up the board, then it starts to get into the territory when like a single move can potentially set up like a time travel checkmate onto your opponent's royal queen on the back ranks. So this piece is actually kind of like a force to be reckoned with, and it takes a lot of time to get it like developed. So once the action sort of begins and the pieces start moving up the board, when development has commenced, and there's like a lot of piece activity, it's kind of difficult sometimes to like find good opportunities to develop your common king, because it doesn't oftentimes do that much for your position if there's something that your opponent is sort of like pressing you to respond to. So an opportunity to like recapture, I mean, it's super minor, but any opportunity to like recapture a piece defensively forward with the common king is kind of nice, because that tempo is actually like non-trivial in the long run. Chat, yeah, who's chat rooting for? You know what? Let's take a quick poll. Let's take a quick poll and just take the audience's temperature on who do you want to win? Who do you want to win? Let's see. I'm going to try and be as unbiased as I possibly can. Dreamer or Cirtus. Okay. There we go. Let us know. Let us know. Common King can slowly walk up the board and mate. Ultimate Chad. Exactly. There's a saying by some strong player that active king in the endgame is as strong as a rook. I don't care how accurate that is, but Common King is even better than a normal one. That's true. Certainly, whoever that wasn't talking about 5D chess, but I think Common King is greater than Knight in 2D chess. Wow, really? In 5D chess, I think Knight is a little better. I think it's super situational. In general. Wow, okay. Pieces getting kicked around. So it looks like what happened, I didn't see, but okay, so it looks like after Dreamer pushed h3 to kick the bishop on g4, which was causing sort of problems in his camp. In return, Cirtus put his bishop onto retreated to e6, and then an exchange of the light square bishops happened, and this common king captured, and now suddenly can sort of push up here to defend this pawn, yeah? I mean, the issue is that obviously there's a fork between these two pieces, which is like bad news bears. Dreamer has 2D tactics, won a piece here. By doing all of this, that's really gonna hurt. Like being down a common king in a position that's like closed where you don't have like an overwhelming tempo advantage is pretty fucking rough, if I'm honest, especially when like Dreamer, you know what? I'll get used to never doing that. Let's just close all of our, okay, there we go. Okay. Listen. This is pretty Monka-esque. This is pretty, oops, let's do one of these. F11, come on, man. Can I please? All right, whatever, that's fine. Okay. Dreamer's done a fantastic job of limiting the mobility of this black knight here. So it's like, what do you do now? What do you do now as Cirtus? I mean, develop your pieces, right? There aren't very many like tactical opportunities, and the fact that this common king is right in front of this royal queen really shuts down, and there isn't like a crazy bishop travel that can happen. So what do you do in Cirtus as Cirtus in a position like this? Well, you know, mobilize your pieces with your get your rooks out. It's like some of the only pieces that you have left, and maybe if you're kind of in desperation mode, which I mean might sound a little bit harsh given that, you know, it's like only a common king, but this is a game between two like seasoned veterans of the game. It's not like this knight is kind of tied down to defending this pawn right now, so, and it can't really like mobilize or rotate very easily, right? Like it doesn't, there isn't really any good spot that it can hop to. And I mean, black is technically up a pawn, but like structurally this pawn is almost more of like a liability than anything else. Like missing, I think the e pawn is kind of like a big deal here for black. Dreamers, I think of all players, kind of the least likely to let me put a positive spin on it. I think that Dreamer, being a very solid 2D player, excels at converting sort of advantages like this into, especially in a game mode like this, without that much sort of crazy like degeneracy or whatever. I think that one of his strengths is sort of like cleanly, successfully converting a position like this. IMO King in 2D chess is worth like 3 points. I don't know enough to say, really. All right. Hide queen in bunker, then charge the pawns. Not too clear how to... Yeah, I will give you that. It's not very clear how to like quickly convert as Dreamer, but it's clear how to slowly convert, I think. Activate your pieces, kind of collapse on this pawn, centralize your rooks. I don't know, like, okay, so this knight can be tricky. Like, as soon as you sort of forfeit this knight's... Actually, here, not really, because then Comet King just pushes up and you want to trade pieces anyway. Okay, the poll is ended. Let's check the poll. Okay, so 6 out of 10, sorry, 2/3 of chat are rooting for Cirtus. 1/3 of chat is voting for Dreamer. So we've got 2-1 Cirtus preference here, which I think makes a lot of sense. You know, Cirtus is the underdog. I think it's safe to say. Dreamer, one of the favorites to win the tournament. Next to, I think, probably Ryan, most people would agree. Dreamer is the highest rated. Alex May, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. How's it going, man? I feel like it's been a little while since I've seen you around. Welcome. Dreamer is the highest rated player in 5D chess right now. So I think that he's definitely the favorite to win here. Let's see. The other day in a public match, I got into King Pawn endgame, which got simplified into K plus P versus K, not in my favor. May have been the only time I've seen a 5D game get simplified all the way. I've never had a 5D game get simplified all the way. That's pretty crazy. Endgamey stuff actually can get, I think, kind of counterintuitively, the more the position gets opened up in some ways, the more chances that affords Cirtus, I think, to sort of leverage his knight in like a tricky way. Because so in general, knights kind of excel in like closed positions because they can, sort of hop around. The way that they move and the fact that they can jump over pieces means that they sort of have a mobility that bishops don't. So like in general, sort of vaguely speaking, in 2D chess, knights are sort of better for you in closed positions than bishops are. However, right now, there's kind of a situation where the position is pretty locked down in terms of like Dreamer has cut off this knight's ability to do very much of anything. And the knight is the only... It's very difficult to sort of make plays happen with a rook in 5D chess, just because of the way that they're limited in terms of their travel, and the way that they can only check a piece in the past by moving on top of a space where that piece was the last piece that occupied that space, if that makes sense. The knights aren't really doing... Sorry, the rooks aren't really doing very much for Cirtus here. The knight is kind of like his only hope, realistically. And I think that as the position like opens up, as sort of like pawns are exchanged, the mobility of this knight will be augmented in a way that will actually enable it to make more plays than it currently can, where like right now it can't even really move. So I think somewhat counterintuitively, Cirtus kind of wants to like open the positions up to make room for his knight to hop around. Which, I mean, there are no like hard and set rules like that in regular chess. Like there are caveats to sort of every rule of thumb, but I think that's sort of, that's sort of vaguely what we're looking at here. It would be fantastic if I could hide my, actually, can I do this? how do you hide the lock all taskbars? Showing it cascade one. Hello, sir. Taskbar settings. Hide the taskbar in desktop mode. There we go. All right. Just a little quality of life for the viewers here. Okay. There we go. Okay. Guess there's a difference between who we want to win and who we think will win. No, for sure. I think most people, wow. Okay. This is interesting. Dreamer likes to do this. So right now, Dreamer, I think in general he's a very like solid player. I think in the grand taxonomy of things, there aren't very many players in 5D chess at the top level who focus on establishing sort of like a solid defensive position and then move on from there, as opposed to sort of like a belligerent attacking style of 5D chess, which like attacking is just, it's much easier to generate lethal threats in 5D chess than it is to defend against them. The best defense in many ways is like a good offense. So I think a lot of people sort of hyper focus on trying to make like really sort of aggressive plays happen, like sacrificial plays, crazy travels and stuff like that. Dreamer is a player who really loves to castle. He loves, which is kind of dangerous in 5D chess unless you spend like a lot of time sort of prepping it. I mean, don't get me wrong. He spots the aggressive plays when they're there. He's like more than capable of, doing like a multi-move combination, aggressive sort of, 5D mating tactic web. But this is like this, I would characterize this move as a very Dreamer type move. You can't castle in reverse royalty. The next best thing, especially when you've got a piece advantage, is just sort of like hiding your queen in the corner, right? But behind your rooks, behind your common king, which is like an absolute unit and like defensively, getting what we mentioned earlier about like not being able to exactly see how Dreamer, this isn't to say that he's like turtling. It's always intentional, right? So like in the standard variants and like turn 0 and stuff, Dreamer loves to castle. Usually he castles queenside so that he can leverage his pawns to open up the position on the king side of the board and, sort of solidly like death march his way up the board and smother his opponent and open them up. In this situation, it's no different. He's not just like hiding for hiding's sake. What he's done here is establish queen safety, royal piece safety, which is going to enable him to open up the board, like pushing up these pawns to, crack open the sort of to leverage the weaknesses that his opponent has created with his sort of pawn pushes and queen positioning, and sort of get at him that way. So we'll see how it works out. It's an interesting move. Now that the queen's no longer in the center, he doesn't have to worry so much about, sort of going crazy with these pawns. Finally back to watch you. It's good to have you back, Alex Bay. Standard variant with train everything in pawns. Dreamer doing queen bunker. Exile. Castling is OP. Castling is OP with caveats in 5D chess, right? It's like you have to master the rules in order to break them. In most disciplines, I think 5D chess is no different in that, like as a beginner, everyone will tell you castling is bad until you realize like why it's bad. It isn't until you realize like completely why castling is bad that you can make castling good, which Dreamer is good at doing. Dreamer is good at, I think, finding opportunities to castle safely in this game. But now maybe some pawn storm from Cirtus is kind of possible. It's hard to prevent Dreamer from locking things up. Also, before Dreamer opens up into the center, there can be problems on the diagonal. It's true. There are I wanted to characterize Dreamer's play a little bit more as well, to contextualize. Dreamer's a very strong 2D chess player. He is one of the few, like at the top level, there are just a few 5D chess players who are actually like above 2000 in regular chess. You know, by like, I don't know about FIDE. I don't know what Dreamer's rating is or if he has one. But at least, you know, like chess.com sort of thing. I know that like Ryan, Lexi, of course, I think is probably the highest rated player. Is inactive now, but and then I think Romad. And then there are a lot of, I think Andre's decent too, but I'm not quite sure how much he's focused on 2D chess in particular. And then there are like there's the camp of players who don't really have like a 2D chess background, Cirtus being among them. I think that Cirtus didn't really play chess before 5D chess. I'm kind of the same. My 2D play is like very disproportionately much worse than my actual 5D chess gameplay. I think that that's reflected in the play styles of a lot of these players as well. Oh, Dan Rao was the strongest. Above 2000 is not very strong. No, I know, I get it. It's just relatively speaking. It's about like comfort levels. It's about comfort levels, right? And about like 2D tools that you have at your disposal. Because it's all relative, right? You know, 2500 is garbage, you know, if like you're playing whatever Magnus in like a, you know, like world championship format, you know, so it's all it's all relative. Lex was active yesterday again. Oh, so that's awesome. Right. So I think as a result of that is where I was getting is what I was getting at here. Oh, that's interesting. Not that I think it's good, but like an evocative feature of this position is that knight g5 threatens mate in 1. Royal queen defending. Close. This is like Dreamer's only move, really. Dreamer's only good move anyway. You kind of had to anticipate this before making this move. This seems crazy. H5 here. H5 here. H5 here and then just take the knight and then you're kind of screwed, no? Takes, then what do you do? If you trade, oh, your whole position's like falling apart then, right? I'd still take here as Dreamer maybe, yeah? Because what's the, if you can simplify down to where you're up a bishop, there aren't like, I don't see crazy 5D threats here. I don't know. Listen. I think Cirtus could have prepped this knight move a little more. Yeah, I think it was premature. I think it was there, but when you're playing a player like Dreamer, you know, he's not going to, like, the one move tactics he's going to find, right? Are you winning, son? Someone's winning. I think Dreamer is in a much better position right here. Right. So listen, okay. I think that the fact that Dreamer is like a much stronger 2D chess player and that he's like comfortable there is reflected in his playstyle. The more solid, like positional playstyle. I think Dreamer likes to shy away from and shut down 5D tactics. He's adept at those sort of aspects of the game. Don't get me wrong. Cirtus opting to defend the pawn here, and also, you know, discourage this trade. Yeah, I think Cirtus is just objectively in like a much worse position than he was like 3 moves ago. But I think if he can avoid it, like Dreamer loves to trade down into endgames. He loves to play just really sort of like solid positions. He doesn't go for crazy attacks. Whereas players like Cirtus, myself, Narik, to some extent Andre, you know, really enjoy just going nuts. Yeah, here you have to be really careful because when the common, huge alarm bells should be going off whenever the common king is within, is 2 squares away from your royal piece. Because let's say that this knight wasn't moved, for example, like if this knight was here, then this common king in a turn could travel to here and be defended by itself and check the queen on the original timeline, so it like threatens mate in 1. You have to be really careful. And this knight right now is the only thing that's defending this square. So I think you have to redefend this square so that you don't like immediately lose the game. I think... Isn't that bad? Dreamer threatens mate in a second, right? Like, all he has to do is travel to this board. He can't deliver a check next turn, granted. But Dreamer wins next turn. Oh, it's because Cirtus has literally no time. Dreamer has literally no, or sorry, Cirtus has literally no time left, so this was just like a desperation move. Obviously, if you enable the trade, then this is mate, the way that I said it was mate. Even so, though, it's... I think it's... Dreamer can do almost anything here. Probably I would push this and kick the knight again, right? You just push this pawn. And then what do you do? Because you have mate in 1, right? Dreamer can do a stylish Tchaikovsky. Dreamer can do a stylish Tchaikovsky by like checking with the knight... checking with the common king here, and then... how does he... And then traveling a bishop to here? I don't know what the best way to do that is, because you can't really mobilize the bishop. Yeah, king e6 does a... I won't go into what a Tchaikovsky is right now, for those of you who don't know, but Dreamer's white, yes, figures. I'm not going to read into that too much. This looks scary. 5D's wild, man? Yeah, co-pilot. No, 5D is absolutely insane. Yeah, that's as good a move as any, to be honest. Oh, okay, Cirtus flags, which is a shame, but there's no way that he gets out of this. All he could do, okay, he could have prepped prepped a Jurassic just to buy himself some time, but he loses. No travel, bishop 2 turns back even. King is already there. Oh, no travel. I got you. Yeah, okay. I feel like those last 5 seconds go by really fast. Dude, they really do. I've been there. I've been there too many times. Defended pawn, which is so shocking. Here we are. Okay, game 2. Wow, we're just off rip. Best move in 5D chess. This is game 2 in the 5D chess World Championship semifinal, being played between Cirtus, who in this game has the white pieces, and Dreamer, who has the black pieces. Dreamer, as we ran over a little bit ago, is the highest rated player currently in 5D chess. He is, I think most would consider sort of a favorite, certainly a favorite to win the tournament. One of, I think, 2, Ryan being the other. But Cirtus has taken many a game off of Dreamer before, so, you know, it's really all to play for. Cirtus just lost game 1, which was also played in reverse royalty. He had the black pieces. It was kind of like a 2D tactic that caused him to go down a common king, and Dreamer just very adeptly sort of marched his pieces up the board. Cirtus was in time trouble, but I think at the end of the day, it was kind of not super operant at that stage, you know. Knight c3 is the best move in reverse royalty, I think so. The royal piece side knight, I mean, it's kind of like a meme in the stream now, but royal piece side knight is, in general, the best move to play. It's just very solid. Dreamer likely took note of this in his master file. True. Okay, here we go. So knight's out, symmetric opening, and then the king side we've got e4, e5 played. You know, we don't these like central pawn first openings. We actually don't really see that frequently in reverse royalty. Not that we see too much reverse royalty in general, but I think we see a lot of sort of flank pawns pushed. This is interesting. It's like a French style rather than like the London, where, I mean, you know, it's the white, this is the white side, so not exactly, but the fact that d3 was played before the light squared bishop was developed is kind of curious, because it's like a French, kind of like a French bishop now. I mean, you've still got like structural flexibility. You can still fianchetto it if you want, but it's interesting that Cirtus would kind of choose to hamper his... I mean, the bishop gets kicked around pretty easily, but still, I don't know. I wonder if c3 might be the best move. This one? Nah, that'd be ridiculous. The only better move is the other side knight. He's flagging him. Oh, it's true. No, this is interesting. I wonder what motivates after, because the reason that you push a central pawn forward 2 spaces is kind of to enable yourself to develop both of your bishops before you've got your central pawns out. I mean, you can always like fianchetto bishops and develop them that way, but obviously you can't, like e4 as a move just isn't very accessible in 5D chess just because of the vulnerabilities that it creates. Here it's kind of, it's a little ballsy here. Not that this triagonal is really something that these triagonals aren't really something that you can take advantage of in reverse royalty, obviously compared to standard. But it's interesting that like you push the central pawn to introduce this vulnerability into your structure, kind of like the overextension, and not develop your bishop. You know what I mean? And you can't really support it with this pawn here and do like a, like a French defense style or like a London style, sort of like pawn pyramid structure, pawn chain. Because then your bishop's totally blocked off. I really need to stop clicking. So it's interesting. It's a curious choice. I mean, Dreamer seems to be taken up. He's like, never seen this move in my life. I don't know what you're smoking. But he retorts by harassing this knight, which I think is fine. This is interesting. This is interesting because, I mean, okay, normally like pressuring if this was standard, then really the board would kind of be reflected here. And you would have like the kingside knight out, and harassing the kingside knight would be, is something that's just super strong in general in 5D chess because it holds down. And okay, so I'm surprised that he kicked it, but also not. Okay, here are the sort of like background dynamics of like what just happened. This knight was kicked, so you got to defend it probably. Otherwise, it can cause headaches for you. Like if you did something crazy, like, I don't know, move the knight somewhere, whack. Like, let's just say you like move the knight up like this or whatever. Then that's kind of trouble because you can like you can throw the bishop in here and like force the queen to move and then get your knight in here and like maybe do something wacky, right? So I just want to move it away. You can defend it with, for example, the common king, which you want to develop anyway, but then that kind of cuts off your bishop, your dark square bishop, which is the only bishop that can really do anything, right? So the only other, you could develop the bishop like this, but then you undefend your b pawn, and so like kicking the bishop away by pushing a3 is kind of like the alternative to that. In response to that, Dreamer has opted to, because Dreamer doesn't have the problem that Cirtus does in that he developed his dark square bishop before pushing d6. So that's going to be sort of like the more limited, weaker bishop anyway, given the structure. So much is happening right now, but let me finish this thought. So he's quite happy to trade this like worse bishop for this knight, especially given that as a result of that, Cirtus's queenside pawn structure is weak, especially given, like there are these gaps in his structure, and especially with his knight gone, and his kingside pawn structure is like open, right? So I think that was actually a very shrewd interrogation of Cirtus's opening decisions. I think that was really good. Now, what Cirtus did manage to do is move that bishop by not frappuccinoing, but pushing g3 and then getting the bishop out to h3, which did neutralize Dreamer's like one good active bishop at the cost, however, of a sort of a like developmental positional disadvantage in that obviously, so the knight gets to recapture, but knight's on the rim, shit's looking grim, right? And this knight can't really do anything or go anywhere. So In a position like this, what do you do as Cirtus? You start developing your pieces. This knight is like the only super active piece in such like a that's kind of possible to like utilize in a close position like this. I mean, you could start moving your king up, but like to what avail? Cirtus is kind of just going. He's going in heavy to like disrupting. He's investing deeply in what's the word I'm looking for? He's committing. We're English hard, man. He's committing to opening up his kingside structure in an attempt to sort of mobilize his minor pieces on the kingside here. Like if this knight can't move to this square, then maybe you just push this pawn up and harass the pawn that is preventing this knight from doing anything, right? And then, you can get your rook over, maybe your common king up. I'm not so that's going to take forever. I wouldn't be too scared if I was Dreamer. Although, it's not like Dreamer can super easily do anything crazy here himself either. I don't know. Maybe, what does Dreamer want to do? Probably wants to walk his common king up, maybe to e6, where it's going to do a lot of work defensively. He could maybe mobilize his the fact that Cirtus has pushed nothing comes for free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So if you're pushing this G pawn, then aggressively that does a lot for you. The flip side to that is that the G pawn is no longer defending the F file, and with the E pawn pushed as well, a square like F4 is completely unaccounted for by the white player. So something like knight G6, knight F4 is going to be super annoying for white to deal with if he doesn't want to move. If he doesn't want to move his knight or whatever, he could push his common king up, but he can't kick this piece with pawns, right? And it's sort of it's like a little outpost that could come in handy for Dreamer in the future. Is my point. That's my point. Which is kind of the thing that you have to do in a position like this, where you have a solid structure and you sort of want to take like deliberate advantage of it. These are the kind of things I think. These are the kind of positional moves that Dreamer is working toward. Let's see. G4 is a crazy move. Now the queen side is weak. G4 is very much in the style of Cirtus, though. I agree. No, that's what I was saying. Like, I think that Dreamer was anticipating that like it is king side, but yeah, I don't think I can mentally flip king side, queen side. Common king side is weak. Yeah, no. So this by opening choice, Cirtus kind of committed by sort of like opening up this diagonal toward his common king side. He sort of committed to like an attack on this flank, right? And by disrupting the royal queenside pawn structure with his early bishop pressure, that's why I think it was so good, because now he's got like meh structure on the queen side, and also he's got like weaknesses on the king side. So I think this is like excellent positional understanding being demonstrated by Dreamer here. Yeah, mine too. Rook b1 doesn't seem to hurt. No, Rook b1 doesn't hurt, of course. I think that what Cirtus wants to do is push, especially with like a gung-ho move like g4. It is a very Cirtus type move. I think that these players like stylistically are kind of very they sort of stylistically, I think, antagonize each other. Certainly they have contrasting styles. So all Cirtus is trying to do here is just push through, try to break through the structure and make something happen very proactively on the common king side here. The way that he can do this is, sort of with these pawns, the F pawn in particular was going to be the final shot to really get everything going, to like light the wick that would explode the king side here. Dreamer's counteracted this by pushing h6 and then g5, which I think works, because now f4 doesn't really pack the same punch that it did a second ago. Because It just captures. That's an interesting move. I don't know that I actually like that very much because it has opened up this square as an outpost for this knight. And that might not look fantastic because it can still get kicked by the c2 pawn. But if this knight's here, you know, suddenly, like, look at this square. It's unaccounted for. Like, when you push all your pawns like this, if you can get, if your opponent can get a piece past, like especially a tricksy mobile piece like the knight, past your front line of pawns, then it's a real pain in the ass to deal with. So I actually think that this was I think this is a very bad move. I think it's very weakening to the structure. The fact that this pawn was, well, it was defended nicely, and it was kind of the only redeeming quality to the fact that these pawns were doubled, the fact that it was controlling this much space in his own camp defensively, because this knight was totally locked down. I don't know how I feel about this. I guess Cirtus abandoning his sort of like short-term plans on the king side here. I don't know. I mean, suddenly now, as a result, Dreamer, you know, he has redefended Cirtus has redefended the d4 and b4 squares. But as a result, his common king can't perform work on the king side, you know? So I don't know. Ryan says, I think his pawn was perfect on c3. So that's just what we were talking about, which is good to hear. Moving it has development ideas. Moving everything has development ideas. Moving any pawns. Although I think c4 is actually not bad. The structure is pretty decent to stop d5 forever. That's true. It's true that this is like defensively more solid. I'm just referring to the fact that it's all about context, right? Like all of these moves you have to take into account within like the context of the greater like movement on the board. I mean, it's not like Cirtus committed that much to the king side offensive, but I think as a result, it sort of peters out like the sort of heavy tempo, aggressive ideas that he was tossing around, which is why I'm most critical of it. It's interesting. So Dreamer thinks, I think rightfully so, that his queen side is pretty solid. So now he's trying to open up the king side that Cirtus has already started to open up for him. I think f3 was needed to counter this pawn push. I think f3 was needed. I agree with you. I think instead of c4, I'd play f3 here. Or sorry, 2 turns ago or whatever. Yeah. There also isn't very much, a lot of times we talk about these general ideas of, I've heard Lexi make this comment once, and it really resonated with me at the time, and even more so like the more I play 5D chess, especially in a variant like Reverse Royalty, which is kind of slower developmentally, less like tactically volatile. Whenever you make a trade, for example, a knight on either c3 or f3, or c6 or f6, which necessitates a recapture with the either b or g pawns. Usually, like in 2D chess, it's like, yikes, what you're doing is opening, you're doubling the pawns. It's like introducing weaknesses to the structure. I think in general, in 5D chess, it's more advantageous to be the player who opened up their file like that by recapturing with that pawn and doubling their pawns than it is in 2D chess, because it's so difficult to activate your rooks in 5D chess. And I think rooks are like a sort of underutilized asset, especially offensively. I think actually maybe it's more important because you sort of get into like open endgame positions in Reverse Royalty more often than you do in standard. So maybe it's better to like half open this file, for example, the G file, when you've got like a regular king versus a regular king in standard 5D chess variants, because rook capture, the rook taking control of the file is actually like a pretty strong offensive asset. Whereas here, you know, you're probably going to go into an endgame where like the rooks are relevant anyway. So the weakness in structure versus like the gained tempo in like development of a piece such as the rook is like less strong, I guess. So there are those redeeming qualities kind of to like the situation like this where you double your pawns and you lose your B pawn. But Cirtus doesn't really have like a fantastic opportunity to take advantage of that just because of the structure that Dreamer has set up. Hi, says Jack Attack. Hi, Jack Attack. How's it going? Okay, so we've had, okay, so pawn was pushed, recapture, which I think was kind of necessary. And then capture and then recapture with the rook, kicks the knight off back to its starting square, which I guess is maybe nice because you can develop it to f3, whereas on h3 it was just really stuck. Into a very interesting move here by Dreamer. Let's look at that. Whenever you moves like this are whenever you move a royal piece forward, especially in like a mid-game position, it's actually pretty spooky. It's kind of dangerous. So we really have to think about this. We have to think about this kind of hard. What is the idea here for Dreamer? Dreamer has now pushed his royal queen to d7. Are you playing it? No, this is right now, we're commentating a semifinal match for the 5D Chess World Championship. Can you just play c5? What if c5 now? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Okay, so the idea here, what chat is saying is c5 here, and then the idea is that, you know, if like what you're putting pressure on this pawn, obviously, and if captures with a pawn, you're probably quite happy to sacrifice a bishop in order to open up this diagonal to the royal queen. That's like the idea here of c5. C5 is a very Cirtus move. It's super aggro. He's not hovering over it. I wonder what he's thinking. Take the free rook. Take the free rook is a funny idea. It's take the free rook is actually immediate mate. It's not. Okay, to be fair, it's not. No, it is. Because if you, well, hold on. Take the free rook, knight here, check one turn in the past, forced only move recapture, and then this travel. Oh, actually, no. If takes, then you can immediately travel because this rook, this knight is defending that common king, right? So take the rook and then you immediately travel. And you like, congratulations, you Tchaikovsky'd yourself. So it's soft mate in one. C5 vacates, also C5 vacates C5 for the king. C5 vacates C4 for the king, which is in this situation, if you can get a common king here as white, you're laughing. I mean, these knights defend each other and they hold down the position pretty well, and Dreamer can always push. Dreamer can always push his king to e6 himself, but you know, it's evocative. Queen takes h6, king g6. Oh, hey, you don't need to travel. My bad. My bad. That's 5D. I don't even know if I should call that 5D tunnel vision. It's like 4D tunnel vision. Whereas we need 3D vision. But that's really funny. You get this knight's here the whole time. You just immediate mate. You know, you can't work at every level when you see mate and one look for better. Very nice. Thank you, Nick. There you go. It's difficult to jump between levels of abstraction in this game. You know, that mental flexibility. Like a lot of the time I'll miss like the fact that there's a 2D mate, just because I'm looking for 5D mates. You know, hey, it happens. It happens. See a free piece, take a free piece. That's Ryan's advice. Soft mate is greater than mate. It's certainly chatter than mate. Looks like Cirtus opting for king b4 before c5. Is this prepping C? Maybe he's just not even thinking about C5. I'd be surprised if that were the case. Man, he really has like the saddest rook of all time there, huh? Oh, this rook. This rook is kind of interesting. This is a very, I think this is a very rich mid-game position that we have here. It's close. There's no clear. This is one of those crossroads where you have to think to yourself, like, how and where do I break? I mean, this prepares c5 with the idea that, like, you take, instead of sacking a bishop after you push here, well, okay, you probably still sack the bishop. Maybe, well, maybe you don't. Maybe you sack the common king. Is that the idea? Or you sack the bishop and then the common king is here preparing like a potential travel. You push here, takes. No, you push, no. I mean, it's going to take 3 turns, but it would be really nice to get this knight into the game for Cirtus. You do something like knight e2, knight c3, knight d5. But 3 turns is an eternity, especially in a game like 5D chess. You should get his knight off the starting square before attacking. Could be a good move. No, I think that, yeah, the fact that Dreamer's pieces are just much more developed. Although, listen, even like the royal queen on d7 just makes me nervous, man. It makes me really nervous for Dreamer. Even though it looks like he's like short up his position, it's pretty solid. You never know, man. You never know. These pieces just really blow the heck up at the drop of a hat. I'm looking for some wacky tactics where maybe... Nah, I think this rook does a lot of work here. I don't really know. Dreamer is spending a long... He wants to make sure that he doesn't run into any shenanigans here. Common king up, I think, probably isn't a bad move. Right? Right? King e6? I don't think you're afraid of like him taking the free piece here. You don't think so? The knight is worth more when it's in its original packaging. No, because he already moved it to h3 and then back. So it's not like, you know, mint in shrink, you know. It's lightly played now. Okay, so if you get the common king to e6, somehow Cirtus would win, right? Not immediately. Scammed? Get reported on eBay? Yeah. Dreamer would have to take the e6 common king with queen, though. Let me take this opportunity as a bit lull in the action. Let me close my window. All right. Lots of tension here. Cirtus kind of equalized on time. Ooh, doubles the rooks. Doubles the rooks is interesting, huh? Maybe he wanted to double the rooks to liberate his... I find it kind of hard to believe, but maybe he's doing this to liberate his common king from f7 because he feels like it's actually doing work there. Okay. So he defends the pawn with a second piece here. Kind of locks down the saddest knight of all time. At least the knight's doing something now, right? But kind of prevents him from pushing, from cracking open the king side here. Dreamer develops his rook. I mean, this is a bit of an issue TM because if you could sack a rook here, then again, well, okay, so like Dreamer's threatening rook takes e4, which I mean you could ignore, but if you wanted to take back, it would open up this diagonal. And you can't close it before Dreamer can just push this pawn and then win the game, delivering checkmate in the past, phasing through that pawn. So it's a bit tricksy. That's kind of impressive, huh? Like looking at this position on this board and then thinking as Dreamer, I'm going to use my rooks to threaten e4. That's like I think impressive positional foresight. Actually, if you have to take it with queen, then you can get Tchaikovsky'd. If the knight was not on e7, this would be scary because the common king could move to g5 and travel onto the knight. Yeah. No, yeah. For sure. Yeah, he meant e7 and b5 here. E7. Yeah. And b5. But this knight is actually doing like mad work. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how well that knight is holding down the structure. What do you do here? As Cirtus, you ignore the threat and make one of your own. I don't think the Dreamer really has anything to worry about here. Does he? Okay, so like if you traveled, then and took this one turn in the past, knight would recapture, and then you'd capture with the common king, and then the queen would have to come out. I don't really see how you convert though. Maybe then you could like push and then oof, the pixels are the frame rate as well. The frames are few and far between. Listen, we can still kind of tell what's going on. So it's all right. It's not frozen because we can see the timer updating every so often. So that's good. Common king will simply go to a6, b7, c7 and win. Common king will simply go to a6, b7 and c7 and win. Yeah, I guess what do? You bring your rook back? Is that the play? Shame that common king can't promote in this game. Yeah. I think that would make it so strong. Oh wow, okay. Hey, that's a clever way to defend against this, right? Just pull back the queen so that the knight can't get around to where it can. This does really show though. This really illustrates what I was saying earlier about the common king being so strong as like an offensive unit, right? It's like closed position. You're sort of just weaving through here like one man army. Up in there, which is fascinating. So now you have the option. I don't think it's good. Actually, this would be much better if you had the knight developed. I think this travel sack here, but if not for the rook, queen g4 would have been mate. Yeah, that's true. This rook here is doing work. Queen g4 will actually be mate for a few more turns, but not you can't like kick it with knight f3 or anything like that. It just doesn't work. f3 seems mandatory for Cirtus now. I think you really got to defend this pawn. Because otherwise, yeah, if the rook gets in here, whew, God bless. Okay, we got our frames back. We got our pixels back. You got to pay attention to those triagonals, and in reverse royalty, man. This is a game. This is interesting. I think Dreamer has the upper hand. But we'll see. There's a lot of chess to be played. Cirtus is behind. On the clock. Which is a little spooky. He also has some pretty sag pieces. The rook on a1, useless. Yeah, I think you have to respond to this threat with the rook. Knight f3, last move was interesting instead of king up. I think that either knight f3 or even knight e2 I think was interesting. Well, okay. Trades just like that, huh? His sort of strongest offensive piece here. He decides to exchange. Really, those two knights were all but locked into position. I'm not positive that I agree with everything that's gone on here. Dreamer has such a solid pawn structure, man. Solid pawn structure. I don't know about that. That king was so active. Yeah, dude, it's like so close. Yeah, to close the trigonal to your queen is kind of right, but also I think to defend e4. Cirtus, long live the king. Yeah, that like I just talked about how all of Cirtus's pieces are like undeveloped and useless. That king was sort of like the only asset that Cirtus really had in the game here, so I'm surprised. If you don't play f3 now, I think you just may lose. I think that probably queen d2 there was really bad. Now actually, Dreamer has mate in 1. I think the only way that you can prevent it as Cirtus is actually to cover this diagonal with your queen. I'm not sure what the idea of queen d2 was, honestly. I actually have no idea. But moving this out of the way, there's a triangle here that's propagated from the royal queen when it was on d1. Dreamer has mate in 1. I wonder if Cirtus sees it. You might just not see it. Oh, Cirtus just loses. All right, he missed it. Well, there we go. Yeah, f3 as a precursor to queen d2 is fine. But okay, hey, you're under time pressure. You're in a situation where you have a lot of there's like a lot of pressure with the rook and your freshly vacated king side, or your freshly vacated queen side. So it happens. But those are the reverse royalty games. It's 2-0 right now. 2-0 for Dreamer. Wow. Okay, this is game 3 of the semifinals of the 5D Chess World Championship. Dreamer is ahead 2-0 right now. So this is match point for Dreamer, I believe. Someone correct me on that, actually. Okay, so Dreamer has the white pieces. For anyone who doesn't know, Princess is kind of Dreamer's pet variant. He won the only tournament that happened in the Princess game mode. Not a lot of people play the Princess game mode. For those of you who don't know, the Princess game mode, you can see the queen here looks a little anorexic. In this, it's like standard, except the queen piece is gimped in that it is now only a bishop plus a rook. It has either bishop moves or rook moves. It cannot move along 3 or 4 dimensions at once. So triagonals and quadragonals are off limits for the queen piece, which insanely inhibits sort of like the potency of the piece and makes it a lot less maneuverable within the 5D space when there are like multiple timelines, which means that there are sort of much less strong like queen-based tactics. So this is interesting. Maybe Cirtus has some secret preparations in Princess. I think anemic is the correct term. I think it looks the same hue as it did once. Princess looks so alien to me, seeing all the open triagonals. I know. I think one of the reasons that Dreamer likes this variant so much, a lot of us don't. Okay, I'll just go ahead and make clear that I don't care too much for the princess variant. I think that the lack of mobility for the queen unit takes away a lot of the sort of like configuration space of the game that makes it really 5D, which I really enjoy. There's a lot less sort of like tactical flexibility, I feel. Although if like if queens get traded off early in the game, then like it's equivalent to any other game mode, so it's still 5D chess, it's still fine. I think that because of the lack of early game degeneracy, Dreamer just really likes this because, as I've said before, Dreamer's like a kind of a 2D player before he's a 5D player in a lot of ways, I think. He likes to play solidly. He doesn't like too many wacky shenanigans, and he prefers to just play sort of solid positional chess. And he doesn't like go too crazy with like, insane sort of 5D, aggressive 5D tactics. Cirtus, on the other hand, does. Cirtus is kind of like the opposite player stylistically, as we kind of mentioned in the previous game. And so seeing Princess here is kind of shocking. Now, Princess is fine, honestly. Princess is fine. I don't like Princess as much. I think most people prefer like the Queen regular as opposed to the Queen nerfed variant. Princess is fun unless I lose, and I often lose in Princess. Or at least much more fun than what people make it out to be. I'm not trying to demonize the variant. I think that it's still fun in that, 5D chess is fantastic, whether or not the queen piece is gimped. Like Lexi retrading queens every other game. That's true. But I'm just personally not a massive fan. And I think that Cirtus doesn't have nearly as much. I think that it plays to Dreamer's strengths more than it plays to Cirtus's strengths. So I was shocked to see that Princess was banned. Sorry, that Princess remained unbanned. Especially when Half Reflected was on the table, because I think Dreamer hates Half Reflected. And Cirtus had the opportunity to strike down to Half Reflected. Pfannkuchen is here. How's it going, Pfannkuchen? How's the score? So it was 2-0 in Dreamer's favor. Dreamer just won the 2 reverse royalty games. Now we struck down to Princess, and Cirtus has the black pieces first. So what's actually happened? Let's talk about the game here. Cirtus starts with a c-pawn opening, which is interesting. The c-pawns get engaged. The c-pawns are exchanged. They're off the board. And now we've got knight f6, which is the best move in 5D chess, as everyone knows, and sort of regular development. H6 is interesting. It kind of prevents, the Cirtus sense that Dreamer would have a really good time sort of probing the safety of his knight here, like Dreamer did in the previous game, kind of ish. So I wanted to prevent that from happening. I'm not like a massive fan of like this move out here because it just weakens your kingside so much. It's much less bad. It's much less weakening in this variant compared to regular 5D chess. That's for sure. A queenless endgame, not a princessless endgame. Yeah, exactly. Think about it. What's the one variant Dreamer would not be prepped in? It would be the one he would never expect to play. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's true. Actually, the probability of getting an endgame is probably more in the endgame. Yes? Yes? Okay. Wow. Andre wants to make clear that we should not inform Dreamer that he was defending the variant. Okay. Princesses are up. Again, much less volatile opening gameplay here than it's the placement of the princess and the bishop on b6 and d6 respectively. It's curious because this bishop can now just virtually not move. There's no way. Okay, so taking control of the open file. Again, Dreamer doing a much better job of developing his pieces than Cirtus is. This is a really wonky. I don't like the weaknesses in this kingside structure. This is weird. I think based on this opening, you can tell very much. You can tell that Dreamer is a much more avid 2D chess player than Cirtus is. I think like one of them's just playing like fast and loose, kind of very. This is like what I would characterize as kind of like frenetic gameplay, compared to very disciplined, sort of bookish gameplay. Maybe that's how I should put it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So this princess up here. Oops. Keep doing that, man. Keep doing that. Hello? There we go. This princess here is kind of looking at this, staring down the b2 pawn, which is being defended by Dreamer's princess, which I think is fine. You're going to have a lot of trouble activating. Like, look, okay, what do you do with the bishop, man? What do you do with the bishop? Turn 0 has f7 problems, which means queens often meet on the b file. But if you fix that problem, then there shouldn't be so many endgames. I was looking at some chess theory, and I remember one of the games, I saw one of the players made an Alekhine's gun. Then I went to go search that term. I discovered there's a game also called Alekhine's gun. There's a game, meaning like a game, not like a game of chess that's referred to, like, but there's a game, like a video game or a board game titled Alekhine's gun. That's interesting. Alekhine's gun is a structure in chess, for anyone who doesn't know, that's like rook, rook, queen. And you have like a triple battery that's called Alekhine's gun. Yeah, Steam game? Oh, that's interesting. And games are kind of fun. I agree. Okay, Dreamer and Princess is like the best winning streak in current competitive tourney format. Not that that's saying that much, because like nobody plays Princess. Nobody focuses on Princess. Dreamer really likes his Princess, but... Oh, hey. Apparently we could have maximized the screen region this entire time. Sorry, chat. 5 from Princess tourney, 2 from Anniversary, 2 from the group stage. Falls a Russian spy during the height of the Cold War. That's really funny. You think Tones likes Princess? That's shocking. I guess it does enable you to play e5 or e4 with impunity, but it's just because Tones just plays so absurdly bombastically. Okay, listen, we've sort of glossed over the opening here. E4 is a big commitment from Dreamer. And I think we can tell that things are sort of kicking off. Obviously, the threat here is E5, and then it forks these two pieces with these pawns. So that's something that you don't want to do. How do you escape it? You can either move one of these pieces, or, I mean, okay, you can sack into here, but probably it's not even really good. Yeah, like the knights, bishops, and princess. The knight, bishop, and princess in front of the B, D, and F pawns respectively, I think, is really awkward. Like the pieces in front of the pawns, I think, makes it really difficult. It introduces such like deep inflexibility into Cirtus's position. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Princess is decent for exiling. I like princess now because I can play crab better. True. I could Tones not like princess after Dreamer plays e4. True. It's like 5D chess, but you don't have to worry about mate every 5 seconds. Yeah, it's only every 7 seconds. No, but that's part of what makes 5D chess so great, right? How do you respond? How do you respond as Cirtus here? I mean, okay, you want to avoid getting wrecked by e5, right? So so in a position like this, you either like sack, move your pieces away, or the third option is counter threats, but I don't think you really have many, especially because it's princess. Time control, okay, Cirtus down a minute, but not the end of the world. Man, what's going on here? Where can you put your pieces? You retreat the bishop. You could push up to bishop e4. Then when it gets kicked, and then takes, and then you allow Dreamer to really take control of the open file. Doesn't seem fantastic. His pawn push is coming anyway, right? It's very well supported. Like, Dreamer's pieces are so well coordinated. This is what I'm saying. This is just one of those things where, like, you fast forward to the end game and you just think, wow, there's just so many more. There's so much more like harmony, like positionally in the white pieces versus kind of the dissonant, erratic structure here on black side of the board. You have to feel really uncomfortable as Cirtus here. Honestly, maybe just pull the bishop back to e7 is maybe what I would do in this position. You could sack it if you really wanted, and that gives you kind of like an outpost here, right? With the h pawn, like if bishop takes g3, h takes g3, and then you got a little knight outpost here. Maybe it gets kicked by the rook, and then you're unhappy, but it's an idea. Not that the dark square bishop is necessarily doing like a ton of work, but you know, it kind of like laser visions into the opponent's queen side, princess side, I suppose. Sad queen side bishop. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. After bishop b4, a3 knight can take e4. After bishop b4, a3 knight. Sorry. After bishop b4, a3 knight can take e4. After bishop b4, a3 knight can take e4. Oh, after bishop b4, a3. Oh, that undefends the e4 pawn. That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Narik. Yeah, of course. This knight is the sole defender of this. Is the sole defender of e4 here. So maybe that makes it. Yeah. So maybe that makes it a good move here. But now you redefend this pawn, right? Like, what do? You probably like. What's wrong with like bishop d3 here? Because you have a turn. You don't need to respond to this. Like, you don't need to kick it, right? Early e6 openings don't make much sense in Princess. I agree with you. Because it's like it hampers your development. Ooh, this is interesting. Okay. What's going on here? Okay, so in this case, you're threatening the knight, which is difficult. If you move the knight away, it's mate in one. Bishop takes on h8 is immediate checkmate. So you got to defend the knight, which you can't do, again, because of the weaknesses that you introduced into your structure earlier, which is what I was talking about. So you can lose a tempo by redefending it with the bishop, which is kind of really sad here. Pretty awkward. Yeah, not fantastic. This is what I was talking about earlier, man. This is why I don't like the sort of weakening of like double kicking the bishop like that. It's no bueno. Doesn't look fantastic. Is there any good option here other than bishop e7? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. Queen d8. Princess d8. Well, let me think. Princess d8. Princess d8, and then you can only recapture if you trade the bishops if you run the bishop into the knight with this pawn, which is like structurally weakening, but not the end of the world. It also is the only thing. Well, it seems not fantastic. Choose what to undevelop. Man, undeveloping your princess here hurts, doesn't it? Also, then this queen is in trouble, or sorry, this bishop is in trouble. Also, there isn't even you can kick it because if sack here, then you can't do this because this means that you're mated. So this knight is pinned. The pin on this knight doesn't feel great. You're pretty sad here, I think, if you're Cirtus. I think that this is I would have done this last turn because you just wasted a tempo moving it to here and then back. But it's like sunk cost fallacy, right? You don't want to cost yourself the game just because you made like an inefficient move. Yeah, so early e6 openings don't make much sense in Princess. I agree with Ryan. Because it's like like I was saying before, like the advantage of like double pushing one of your central pawns is that it affords you the flexibility of developing both of your bishops before you sort of solidify your like central presence with your pawn structure. E6 means that immediately it's impossible for you to develop your light square bishop. It might be necessary, it's nice because it sort of immediately it allows you in standard 5D chess variants, like in turn 0, it enables you to activate your queen and your dark square bishop, which is really good, and it's not as positionally weakening as something like e4, which can be disastrous because it can be, or e5, I guess, in this situation, because it can get collapsed on and you get mated or whatever. So e6 is decent because it like is safe and enables you to develop aggressively with tempo. In Princess, as a game mode, it's much slower. It's much development is just much more deliberate in general. So I think you don't need to play a move like e6 early when you can do excuse me. Well, when you can push something like d5 or e5 or whatever, which leads you to not positions like this, right? Because look at this bishop is screwed, man. This bishop is an issue. Knight d5 here seems funny. Knight d5 here seems funny. Knight d5. Oh, sorry, it's white. Knight d5 here seems funny. Knight d5 here seems funny. Okay, so I mean, knight d5, you fork the knight, which is the only thing preventing white from mating, and the princess, which is obviously the strongest piece, the queen piece. So in that situation, probably you either retreat the princess, or, I mean, capturing, going up the piece, like, yeah, you open the... Then again, okay. So, knight d5, e takes d5, and then you have bishop takes f6, and then bishop takes f6, and then because of the sort of positional awkwardness, black can't really cover up the diagonal again. So you force open the diagonal, and actually that seems pretty good, huh? That seems pretty good. Yeah, he meant white plays knight d5. Knight d5 seems really strong here. Yeah. Yeah, if takes, then you're probably getting mated. Or you have to sack a piece. You could sack the bishop. And then you're even in material because white sacked a knight, but you sack a bishop and enable your opponent to destroy you, so it's not even good. No, I think knight d5 is actually pretty crushing for white. I think. It's not a dreamer type move. That's for sure. I think it's really good. If he takes d5, it can be dangerous because e7 is only defended by the king. Yeah. Yeah, singly defended pieces in the vicinity of, if I've said this once, I've said it 10 million times, but singly defended pieces in the vicinity of the king, super dangerous, because all you have to do All you have to do is like attack it on board and then travel, and then you kind of win the game. It's tough to calculate, but definitely interesting. Cirtus was white. It would be in Cirtus's style. Completely agreed. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is I don't think that it's a very Dreamer type move. It's definitely a Cirtus type move. It looks really crushing, man. But you know, the fact that I think in general, like if there's like a move that looks really strong, but it's not like immediately tractable, if there isn't like a super decisive situation, like a super decisive follow-up, like a conclusion, Dreamer doesn't go for it. He prefers to just sort of like push his slow push his 2D advantage. I suspect that what he's doing now is actually calculating probably that line, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. It's interesting. Hi, Jack Attack. How's it going? What's up? Wow. Just a very dominant, like smothering performance here from Dreamer. Watching this game reaffirms my repeated preference to just not play Dreamer in this variant. It really does. Oh, God. Listen, it's 5D chess. It is Princess, which is less sort of swingy. So there's like less dynamic counterplay than there would be in like turn 0 or defended pawn. But listen, anything is possible. One little slip up, you know, and the whole thing goes tits up. Cirtus can kick bishop with d6. Definitely he can. Definitely he can. Not in response to knight d5 though, right? I mean, yeah, this is the only, like, the fact that you push this pawn really sucks because it, you know, it's the weakness here. But the fact that he hasn't played like d5 yet means that, you know, even though this knight is blocking the f pawn, d pawn's still mobile. Man, look at this bishop. Look at this. How has this happened again? Knight's on the rim. We just talked about this. Yikes. Yikes. But very, very, very disciplined, kind of clinical gameplay from Dreamer. Although he is now behind. Almost 2 minutes on the clock. I gotta imagine he moves it back to starting square again. Oh my God. It's like taking the collectible action figure out of the shrink wrap just to play with it once and put it back on the shelf. It's not worth. With the time he's taking, he's probably considering something like that or some line including it. Completely agree. I think that's the only reason Dreamer takes so long in a position like this. Dreamer mises his time, I think, very well. Yeah, I don't know. Then again, the quarterfinal match I played against him, he was using up like a lot of his time in places where if only I had played better, I could have really taken advantage of like flagging on Dreamer's side rather than the other way around. So I think like he wants to win, I think, the World Championship really badly. I mean, obvious statement is obvious. But I think he's kind of playing a lot more like guarded, a lot more conservatively in general. And that includes, I think, using a bit more of his time in positions like this, where there are a lot of complicated lines. So I don't know. Yeah, whereas usually he would just trust his gut in like whatever rated game, you know, and sort of just like press his time advantage. Ryan's been thinking of knight b5, which is interesting. Knight b5. Knight b5, huh? Knight b5. Knight b5. Wow. Knight b5. Knight b5. I certainly think it's a more Dreamer type move, but I don't really know. I mean, it looks good. I guess you don't have to. So is the idea like knight b5, and then like bishop trade, push e5, and then knight outpost here? Is that the idea? Most doesn't immediately threaten much, though knight e6 is an option. Knight d6, mostly it's just a good positional move in every single way. So the kind of line that I anticipate, the ideas here is knight b5, trade the bishops here, or trade the bishop, sack the bishop into the knight, and then maybe push the pawn up and then knight outpost. Although this bishop gets to retreat, right? So it doesn't quite work that way. You need more support. So it really doesn't like lead to anything directly, huh? Although if you force the bishop back, then, well, no, because the knight is stuck. So it's probably, my line is probably actually pretty bad there. Ignore what I had to say. Okay. Possibly the most Dreamer style move anyone could have come up with here. Just restricting the movement of Cirtus's pieces. Preventing the knight from hopping into here, which really, okay, so on the theme of just kind of preventing the opponent from making any developing moves, fortifying his position, a3, which I think that this is maybe conservative to like a fault. I think that there's a lot, Dreamer just has a lot more options to like push his advantage, but I guess maybe his thought process, and he spent a lot of time on it, maybe his thought process is that this game is kind of his to lose. And he's pretty positionally dominant. Although now you can, okay, if you kick with d6, now what happens? If you kick with d6, now what happens? That gives your opponent just so much time. It gives your opponent basically like tabula rasa. You could basically just make whatever move you want now, right? This seems too slow. Yeah, I agree with Ryan. Classic Dreamer thinks 5 minutes, then plays a compositional move. I think probably what he was doing is calculating those lines. Didn't see anything super conclusive, and so just went with it's got this kind of a very Samet style move in that sense, and I don't mean that in a good way. Since d6 can solve some things now, totally agree with Ryan. We reached the same conclusions. I think d6 now is pretty good for Cirtus. It gives him some breathing room. I really liked one of those knight moves much better. Especially, I really liked, the more I look at knight d5, the better I think it was last turn. But hey, maybe Dreamer saw that and he calculated something that we didn't, right? Who knows? Who knows? Interesting. Think black still has a lot of trouble? No, that's for sure. I think it yields unnecessary tempo to black. Not that I think it's like enough to swing in black's favor, or even that black can necessarily like improve their position much more than they could have before. Unpinning the knight seems decent. Is there a reason why, like, it's d6 is very just like off the top of the dome. Looks good, right? Okay, so he chooses to unpin the knight, which I think is probably good. It enables him to do... Okay, so fortify, I think that bishop d3 probably should have happened earlier. And this makes a lot of sense, right? So what he's done here is, by unpinning this knight to this file versus adding another defender... Because when this knight leaves, then there's going to be nothing defending the f7 pawn. So, like, it's more useful here, but it is maybe a little more spooky. In any case, the unpinning this knight opens it up to attack the... to assume the role of an attacker onto the e4 pawn, and the response is obviously to add another defender to the e4 pawn, which Dreamer could wait to do until now. He didn't have to do it until now, so he does it just in time. Develops another piece. Look at all his pieces, man. Now he plays d6. That's so interesting. Why now? And Dreamer doesn't sack. He just keeps his pieces on the board. Cedes a little bit of control over the center here. Enables Cirtus to maybe begin considering developing the last of his pieces. Bishop up, rook over, something like that. So Dreamer steps back a bit. He's happy with this solid position, but it allows his opponent, yeah, there we go. He's developing his pieces, taking the opportunity. I think this is the right idea. But he allows his opponent to kind of to regroup, to stabilize here, right? So I don't know. Castle long. D6, then G4 even. G4, yeah, is now that you've got... Okay, so the advantage of... This isn't pure disadvantage, right? The disadvantage of this is that you weaken your position, especially in this case on F6. The advantage of doing this is exactly this. You set yourself up to sort of push down the... You know, you push your pawns up the king side. And you aggress in that way. Which is now possible now that Dreamer's kind of lifted for a moment his foot off of the gas pedal. Actually, Dreamer is now coming into a time disadvantage. This is surprising. This is not how I thought. This is not how I thought this would go. Bishop d7. Bishop d7 actually prepared g4. Because the pawn on d4, was indirectly defended with a discovery. Bishop d7. Bishop d7 actually prepared g4 because the pawn on d4 was indirectly defended with a discovery. Like now g4 just threatens to win the pawn. Oh, the d4 pawn. I got you. Do I got you? Why does bishop d7 help in that case? Oh, it prevents bishop b4 check. I understand. Okay. Right. So in this situation, if you push here and you kick the knight, that's a fantastic catch from Andre. That was pretty good. So what Andre is saying here is that this bishop here, if this bishop wasn't here, then kicking the knight here with this pawn didn't actually enable it undefended this pawn, but it didn't actually enable Cirtus to capture it, because in response, Dreamer could check the king with this bishop onto b5, which would then win Cirtus's princess. 2D tactics. That would have been bad news bears. On the flip side, bishop d7, which I don't think necessarily was his intention. I think it was just like the most straightforward developing move in the position. Prevents that check from happening. So now kicking this knight with the g4 here actually does win this pawn for realsies. But okay, so Dreamer decides that now is the time to sort of stir the pot, as it were, with a cool e5. E5, kicking the knight, putting pressure on the pawn. Interesting. Now knight can drunkenly stumble to d5. It's true. The knight can now drunkenly stumble to d5. So can this one. Okay, so gets his knight out of harm's way. Capturing did look pretty sus. because what you've done there is, so if you capture in that situation, then it's like the position's kind of reset to what had happened to what happened earlier, except now there's no defender. Although, okay, hold the phone. You have to maybe actually start being a little bit careful here as Dreamer. No, like if Cirtus had taken here, I guess there's the knight would have recaptured, or no, the bishop recaptures. You kick with the pawn. It's the piece here is pinned because if the piece here leaves, then you push this pawn and then you win the next turn unless you cover the diagonal. With like a minute on the clock, I'd be surprised if you would be like okay with that happening. I guess he just thinks that he can defend no issue, which maybe is true. He's got two pieces staring this down, but I don't know. Okay, actually here, trapping the bishop, I think it's a really good idea. I think maybe as Dreamer here, you probably play... Interesting. He pulls the bishop back to prevent the propagation of this diagonal. I might have played knight e4 here to defend the bishop and also close the diagonal. It's interesting that this is the risk Dreamer decides to take. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm surprised that Dreamer allowed this, but not what had happened earlier. Okay, Dreamer's now, we're sub 2 minutes on the clock here, about twice as much time left for Cirtus. Things are actually getting spicy. It's much less clearly like a dominant position for white, although I think white does still maintain the advantage. But I guess here, yeah, and I guess if you take this, you don't have enough turns to like capture here and then push and then the issue, because I mean now Dreamer might actually just castle here. I don't even know, especially like low time here with all these pieces on. I don't know. As Cirtus here, you probably want to keep the tension, I guess. I don't know, but that was a really good move for Cirtus. F2 lost an important defender. I agree that F2 lost an important defender. It's difficult to get to F2. Tic-tacs is always possible. Knight F4 looks good, says Andre, and I think I agree. This is a nice little outpost. As Dreamer, I don't know if you want to enable. Then again, it's undefended. It opens up the, so you can't like trade, and you have to cover the G2 pawn. Okay, so Cirtus, I think I liked keeping the tension, but hey, low time left here for both players, so we're gonna probably see some aberrant simplifications. Maybe, let's say. Interesting princess move, allowing a discovery node attack on the princess. I mean, I guess this move doesn't really do anything. Oh, wow. Okay, so the knight's actually undefended if it hops to this square now because the bishop is moved, right? Okay, now princess gets kicked. Wow, okay. We're low time. Yes, really? What is the problem with knight f4? Unclear. Okay. Wow. Dreamer gets the light squared bishops off of the board and reopens this diagonal. Woof. I think maybe taking here is really good for Cirtus now. Okay, there's some crazy shits going on. The board really has, the position has shifted substantially in the last few moves. Okay, under 1 minute on the clock now for Dreamer. Interesting that he undefends the princess now. Okay, so if takes, I guess, recaptures with the knight, and then you have to move the princess anyway, but then the knight is pinned. Then again, you don't want the knight that close to your king, I suppose. Although the knight can't travel and capture this bishop one turn in the past because it can recapture itself, especially like with the princess in the area defensively. Princess for 2 minor pieces, perhaps. I don't like that trade. It's the time for g4. I think g4 is fantastic. You don't really care about winning the pawn. You care about winning the game, right? Whoa, wait, what's... Okay, so he defends this pawn, which I guess makes sense because you don't want to enable his princess to come in here after the rook captures, but I think that actually kicking the knight here looked super, super scary. Rook d8 for potential flagging tactics. The clocks make me nervous. Yeah, we're getting into butt clench territory here. The knight this deep into Cirtus's camp is enough to make anyone's palms sweaty, I think. Ooh, okay, so knight c8. Pretty much only move. Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Question is, do you trade here? Okay, I like the trade, honestly. I like the trade, and then after the recapture, for which he recaptures with the pawn. So you've got a lot of openings here in the position. Wow, I'm shocked that he doesn't take this and then kick this pawn with the other pawn, right? So recaptures with the pawn, I suppose. With the knight, so now you... Wow. Now you kick the knight. Also, this happens if this knight moves. By the way, Cirtus can still castle, not immediately because that's made in 1, obviously, but... Okay, kicking the... Wow, he take... What? Okay, so you have to cover mate here. You can't do that by castling, unfortunately, because it's mate in 1. So actually... Alright. With the 2 knights, suddenly Cirtus is... Dreamer's in a lot of trouble. Okay, so the check there. Does Dreamer have a... Dreamer doesn't have a travel. He can take the bishop, though, which is going to, like, win. It's, like, threatening mate in 2. Is that... I guess... Maybe he's debating whether he wants to win the 0 on the clock for black, by the way. Okay, so he wants to play it safe, which is the Dreamer decision there. You could have taken the... Rook. Oh, Dreamer missed... Dreamer missed mate in 2. He could have taken the rook with check and then... do you lose before... Oh, no, because you don't have time to travel. Okay, Cirtus flags. Cirtus flags. He... okay, so in this situation, Cirtus was threatening mate in 1. This is really unfortunate because actually it wasn't, like, over. Right? Because here, you don't even have to actually do anything with the knight. Or, you don't have to worry about much because the knight is defending the mating square. So you can get your rook active. You also could have gone for like a Jurassic or something. Wow, holy shit. Okay, so there was a lot of spaghetti there, I think, at the end of the game. Just find a decent Jurassic and it's insanely hard to defend. I agree. Dreamer could force win by Jurassic travel. He could if he wanted to. Taking the rook doesn't lose. I understand that Dreamer was spooked. I would have taken the bishop in that position too. Probably. Although I would have probably spent more time on it, which maybe would have been a poor idea, but it does... No, because it forces... I think you win because you have the other knight. Because if you take the rook, then... all you have to do is move this rook, move this knight and threaten like mating the king. Which you can, where was the knight here? I wish I could scroll over. Right into it. Okay, Dreamer's up 3-0. Cirtus, his back's to the ropes. He's got something to prove. He's not going down this easy. He wanted to make things interesting. He wanted to pog us up, Copium, and with the most bombastic knight f3 I've ever witnessed in my 5D chess career, followed by a puzzling, let's say, adventurous, maybe more judiciously, knight a3. I mean, listen, okay, it's bad form to block your c-pawn. In chess in general, it's like poor positionally to block your pawn with your knight. Doesn't really mean you have to shove your knight to the rim, usually, but hey, he's probably got ideas. Or maybe he's just trying to get weird, you know? Maybe he's just trying to mix it up. Keep Dreamer on his toes. But we'll see. Uh, Cirtus prepped the Digolian. You're going to need co-moderators for the finals, where one makes sexual jokes, the other just spews statistics for hours. I don't know if that's really on vibe for our channel, but, you know, maybe we'll figure something out. I just realized you sound vaguely similar to Chills, but without the enunciation. I don't think I know who Chills is, actually. What do they... I assume that they're a commentator for something? I don't know. Okay. Already I kind of like the position better for Dreamer. Just because it's my... Yeah, okay, you lost the C-Pawn, but your knights are centralized. I'm really... You know, I'm very curious. Golf commentator. Burger King foot lettuce dude. That doesn't help. Or Spanish football commentator. So two very different vibes. It's got to be said. Wow, okay. This is weird, man. What's happened? Why? Because, like, okay, so what's he threatening here? Okay, so he's made the only move that prevents his knight from moving anywhere. Although, on the other hand, what he maybe has done is prepped he's the defense of this bishop, which also would have happened if the knight was on c3, by the way. And now if now if this bishop trade actually happens for the knight and then recapture with b takes c6, the knight can't move anywhere. You don't know the number 15 guy? Dude, I don't. I'm sorry. Knight c3 blocked in pawn. You don't have to play it first. It doesn't... He didn't even do that here. He played the pawn move first, then knight a3, so it doesn't make sense. You could play c4 and then play knight c3, right? Okay, kicks the bishop, forcing this trade, which is positionally, I think, pretty bad for Cirtus. Okay, this knight is now... You know what? Maybe he just really wanted the knight on c2. Oh, he did play knight out first? Okay, I apologize. I apologize. I was mistaken. He played knight out first, so sorry about that. Fake news here. I'm attacking a straw man, but you didn't need to play the knight out first, right? You could have played c4 first, then knight c3. That's usually what you do in a situation like this. This seems good for Cirtus, and then the madman plays b4. Okay, so all of this does like open up sort of like with the knight on f6, especially in a variant like princess, it's kind of difficult to get at your king from the king side. At the very least, this sort of opens up lines to... It's like what's this like? This is like... It's not really like... I was gonna say it's kind of like an Evans Gambit, but it's really not at all. But you know, there are... Look, this is an undefended pawn. And there's no... The light square bishop, which I thought for sure was going to defend this pawn, is instead somehow on f4? Sorry, g4. Looking at the looking at the f3 knight, which is kind of surprising. Now, like, this princess can... Not that there's very much that you can do in 5D chess with something like that. Like, even if a princess was here, it wouldn't like mate the king in the past, right? So I guess you don't have to worry about how weak this position looks, especially with the light square bishop out here. Oh, this is puzzling. This doesn't seem like a this doesn't seem like a Dreamer-esque move. C6 is a very easy target for Cirtus to go after. I agree, but I think Dreamer is comfortable just after, like... Well, okay, so princess out here. I don't know. Dreamer probably just pushed his princess up, and it's, like, not a big deal. You like queen a4, maybe prep bishop b2 for it. Queen a4, of course, is very evocative, hitting both of these pawns, right? Of course, unless you block your princess in immediately. Although there is the, you know, there is this square here for the knight. So maybe you want to rotate the knight to hit c6, which I think makes a lot of sense. Bishop b2, prepping bishop b2 is interesting. I don't think that it like does as much for the theme of, yeah, okay. So obviously what you're doing is attacking this. Although now, Dreamer by pushing, by setting up his structure, sort of completing the pawn chain here with e6. He discovers the attack on this pawn, which has now just been undefended. Excuse me. By Cirtus. I think taking now is pretty bad. But I guess that's the reason that Dreamer prefers having this active bishop here, because his intuition tells him that there's actually nothing to worry about on c6 here. He can just do the usual structure. Princess and rook sort of cover the vulnerabilities, because a travel isn't really devastating because the princess isn't the queen. And then probably just like get this bishop out there and then castle, and then you're laughing, right? I guess that's the idea. Dreamer's insane. Does he have no fears? No, see, that's the thing. I don't imagine putting your knight on c3 when c2 exists. This is the true point of the Digolian. All right, well, hey, point made. Cirtus gets the knight to the all-powerful d4 square. No, but this is what I'm saying. I think that Dreamer isn't, rather than being like Dreamer's insane, I'm kind of more thinking, wow, Princess is a shitty variant. Which isn't fair, but, obviously he realizes that there's like a glaring vulnerability, especially like a positional player like Dreamer, right? He realizes that c6 is a glaring vulnerability that he's like opened up for himself. But he doesn't give a shit because he thinks that it's actually not an issue. And I kind of believe him. I think that it's not a big deal, to be honest. Let's see. Let's see what happens here. All right, so forcing his princess to the king side to recapture the knight. The knight recapture, I think, could possibly have been interesting. Knight recapture, and then, because the knight has a nice outpost here, it can get kicked by the bishop, but... although the knight recapture does uncover he wants to keep pressure here with the knight, because if you, like, knight back, then bishop captures here is, like, really not fun. There's a bishop for no reason. Kick it goes back. It's not really good. Shocked queen a4 wasn't played instead of h3. I'm also shocked that h3 was the move. I agree. Taking here, and apparently this move I'm less surprised by now that I think about it, because the princess is now out here and the rook now defends this pawn. So you can kind of take this with impunity. See a free piece, take a free piece, right? Okay. I think that the wacky stuff that Cirtus did out of the beginning, that sort of opened up avenues of attack on the queen side, princess side, I suppose. I think the advantage he generated has kind of largely been muted now by Dreamer's response, or sorry, by his slow rolling, I guess, like h3 instead of queen a4 or princess a4 or whatever. I think is confusing, because that was like the redeeming quality, right, of the structure here. Now Dreamer's playing for he's gonna like castle king side, right? He's gonna set up a fortress, which I think is gonna be really difficult for his opponent probably to break through. If I had to guess, I think that's what's going on. Is this dark square bishop? Well, I mean, he can still frappuccino it. Okay. Well, that's a Cirtus move. I just don't worry about it. This pawn's defended. Okay. Weird. I think Cirtus is still doing well. He can castle easily. Then the madman goes g4. I thought Cirtus could regroup fine. I thought that he kind of lost, like especially in 5G chess, like you really kind of have to take advantage as the white player of the like the tempo advantage that you have, right? And sort of really, really put pressure on black and like put the onus on them to defend their position. I think that Cirtus kind of lost it, but he was still doing fine because, he's like white and his position is not terrible. I think that g4 though is surprising. Because now he's kind of neither committed to like the queen side attack or the king side attack. It's like a muddled version of both. Because like, what do you do? Okay, so like if you push the pawn here to kick the knight, it's got this outpost. I guess you can kick it again, but you certainly not with this pawn because it's pinned. But maybe with this pawn, and then you're weakening your position because the princess sees h4. But I guess you're gonna push your h4 pawn eventually anyway. It's not like he's gonna play g5 the next move. But I don't know. It seems not crazy. David has redeemed a challenge. Had an inspiration for a new variant. So Hyper Rogue challenge. That's exciting. We'll check that out after this game here. But phase travel to E6. Cirtus wins. Phase travel to E6. Cirtus wins. Phase travel to E6. Phase travel to E6. Cirtus wins. What are you talking about? Phase travel to E6. So I guess what you're saying is... Oh, what are you saying? Ooh, okay. That's interesting. So this was a singly defended pawn that had a knight looking at it, so that's always dangerous. What do you travel to here? The queen? It's M3? Can you explain to me what you're actually talking about? So what, you want to travel a princess to here? And then what? And then like block with the bishop maybe? And queen e7 should hold long enough. Doesn't it? What's your mate in 3? Help me out. You can't just say shit like that. Bishop e7 is what I was saying. Yeah. That's why I didn't think that it was an issue. Queen e7 hangs rook and mate. What, right now? No, okay. We all, Narik, after you do the travel, like let's say you travel here with the princess. Obviously you can't push the princess up because then the princess takes this and its mate, right? Or whatever. But he's talking about post-travel. Whereas Ryan is talking about princess e6 pre-travel. Bishop e7, then queen takes f7. If king takes, then mate. What if king doesn't take? Yeah, you guys are talking about different things. No, I understand that you're saying the princess goes to e6, but I don't understand the follow-up. Because what if bishop e7 after that travel happens? Queen e7 might be better then. Knight goes to e6 then. Knight goes to e6 then. There's still an f pawn. It's mate in 3 on one timeline. King can also run over to d7 after queen takes f7. Knight mates king on other timeline. Yeah, but you can only travel... How many turns do you travel into the past? And queen e7 is forced. Bishop e7, queen takes f7, knight f4. Bishop e7. So after princess travel to, I don't know, one of these boards. I mean, you can't really do it anymore, I don't think. But whatever. Onto whatever board it was. The board before this one. Princess e7, bishop here. Takes. You can't take with the king. Because... Honestly, by the way, you can, I think, take with the king. Because if this happens, then... Oh no, it's before the... Is the queen here before... Because I was thinking you can also travel with the princess from 0L into a position where you can recapture maybe. But if the princess is staring down the knight on that board, then it can just sack into here and then you lose the recapture opportunity. I suppose there's also a check on that board, so maybe you can set it up. I don't really know. That hangs the rook in an even quicker mate post-travel. You block with the queen after losing the rook. Queen e7. queen e7, queen takes c8 check, queen d8, knight e6 check, f takes e6, queen takes e6. At that point, a pawn can recapture. That's true. The pawn from the original timeline can recapture. It is like 10 million turns into the future as well, so. I think it just barely doesn't work. I mean, I get what everyone's going for, because when you have a singly defended pawn, like in the vicinity of the king, with a knight around, you know, those are like the ingredients for a tasty, for like a spicy gumbo, you know, a spicy 5D gumbo. And on the board, by the way, we've been speculating here, calculating lines for that travel, which it doesn't seem like Cirtus probably had in mind. Was interesting. But the Cirtus kicked the bishop. Bishop pulled back, continuing to pin that pawn right there, which I think is the right call. And I get the princess push up, which is interesting. Princess push up is interesting. What do you guys make of queen f4? Pawn recapture, I think this looks good for Cirtus. I guess what this prevents is Dreamer castling, right? Because if castles happens, then you get princess g5 and then travel and then mate. Threatens knight takes f6 and pretty forward, but might work. It's pretty good. Night Fire Hose is now following. Thank you so much for the follow. Much appreciate. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're enjoying. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for the support. This is just the 5D Chess World Championship semifinals between Cirtus and Dreamer, game 4. Knight takes c6 is threatened. It certainly is threatened, isn't it? Knight takes c6. And then the idea here is, okay, so knight takes c6 and you can't capture with the rook because then the princess mates. And there's the rook backing this up, which is pretty spooky. Dreamer also can't castle here because then you get an anti-castle travel immediately. I think, right? But what if you just pull back this, what if you just pull back the bishop to prevent like the diagonal from propagating? So is that an issue? Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You are in it. Finder's fee. Interestingly, this is actually the 18th time he has played this move this season and the 132nd time in his major league career. Okay, here's what I see right now. There are a lot of spicy ideas floating around here for Cirtus. I think it seems holding for Dreamer probably. The most pressing issue is, as everyone has pointed out, the c6 pawn, which, hey, I was shit-talking at the beginning of the game. I was on Dreamer's side. I was saying, yeah, obviously this is like a huge vulnerability, but I think Dreamer just doesn't care because he's fine. Cirtus has done a remarkable job of like capitalizing on it, especially given the fact that he sort of had to rotate his princess over to the king side, which kind of, you know, because we were sort of criticizing the decision to make like the h3 move rather than like queen a4, putting pressure on the c6 pawn, right? Now it appears that actually this generates sort of substantial threat that Dreamer has to respond to. It's really cool that this princess move simultaneously sets up for the checkmate here, and also prevents the anti-castle travel from happening. Or sorry, prevents castling from happening because of the anti-castle travel, right? This move is a move. Cirtus can also play rook b8, which is spooky. Rook b8 is super spooky. Yeah, with this princess rook combination. I did not expect knight e4. Let's dissect. What's going on here? Wonder if Cirtus has a win now? Man, I really didn't expect knight e4 here. Hold on. Knight e4, huh? Okay, so Dreamer's hitting this pawn again. Probably that's the idea, right? There aren't really travels here that look good. Is that maybe like a questionable 2 turns in the past travel on this princess? Maybe thinks he can afford to lose the knight here. But I thought that it was fine for Dreamer only because he had time to address the threat to the c6 pawn. Come on, Cirtus, this is the moment. I think that this certainly of like all the moments in the game that we've seen, in the games that we've seen, like in this set so far, is the most... I think this is Cirtus's 8 Mile. This is his one shot, and he must not lose this opportunity. Don't miss your chance to blow Cirtus. So if knight c6 doesn't win, then I don't know what does. Threaten to travel onto c8. It's true that it threatens to travel onto c8, which would be kind of immediate mate. That's why I was thinking like bishop out, like bishop back instead of knight forward. And then if takes, you have takes. But maybe that leaves you susceptible to this move. No, because then you can just block with the princess, I think, right? Isn't that okay? Am I crazy? Like last turn, instead of knight e4, could Dreamer not have played bishop d8? Does that not win? I think Dreamer just didn't notice this. Okay. I guess, okay, that is the one thing. Okay, so here's the flip side to being such a like a structurally, wow, okay, here it comes. Holy shit, knight takes your c6. This is going to determine whether or not this works. Okay. Wow, he takes immediately. Wait, what? Okay, so recapture. He can't take the knight here, and the knight threatens a winning travel. He can't take the knight here because the princess has mate in 1. So maybe, so what I was saying is the flip side to being such a not crazy 5D oriented player. Wow. The princess doesn't defend that rook a turn in the past. He's in check on this board. That's why he can't go there. He's in check. He's in check. Okay. Right. Wow. Okay. So that is a great way to defend. Okay. So I was going to say, I was going to not give Dreamer the benefit of the doubt and say, if you're not the type of player who kind of looks for these crazy like sacrificial plays, which honestly, actually, this wasn't very, it's not like there's crazy material deficit here that Cirtus had to adopt in order to generate the threats that he generated. I was going to say, if you're a player like Dreamer, then you're sort of not looking for like these crazy tactics. But I think he just sort of swatted it away deftly, thinking, actually, this isn't really an issue. I don't give a fuck. Which is kind of surprising. Yeah, so this covers because now Cirtus can't. Wow. Cirtus can't travel back to here because of the check, and Dreamer just like was fine with that. You know, this is the type of thing where I feel like I get tactically shut down in this way in my games really often, like playing from the Cirtus position, like in this context. And I really don't consider the fact that like delivering checks make certain boards inaccessible. Wow, okay. That's really good. I think 95, that's my T0 brain. 95. I don't know about that. Okay, so you have to either generate a threat here as Cirtus, or run your knight to safety, right? I don't think the knight can really do anything, like Dreamer's knight can really do anything on e4, so I don't think that you have to worry about that. Knight d5 is deflating, to say the least. That king is actually super safe with the c-pawn gone, because it's princess. And that's just the way that it'd be. Otherwise, you could do like f3, win the game, something like that. Wow, this is wild. I wonder if... Hold on. So, I mean, the thing is, Cirtus he's up material here, right? Because Dreamer had to sack his bishop. Why did Dreamer opt to sack the bishop rather than play bishop d8? Do you think he just didn't see bishop d8, or did bishop d8 not work? Bishop takes d2 might have been the only move to prevent travel. Well, no, because it couldn't... Because if bishop d8, then knight takes c6, you just have rook takes c6, right? You think Dreamer didn't see this and was forced to sack? Okay, you just think Dreamer didn't see this. Okay. Well, actually, that not like now that I really think about it, like it's true that the crazy like threats have sort of fizzled, but Cirtus has a positional advantage in princess, or sorry, a material advantage in princess. Dreamer, well after Dreamer allowed knight c6. A wacky move would be knight b8. Dude, I thought about knight b8, but it's still the travel 2 turns back still doesn't work. But I was thinking in this position knight b8, because there's not the fact that you've got the material advantage is kind of nuts, because now the bishop can maybe actually threaten some shit, right? I don't know. You like kick the knight. After knight b8, princess can't retreat to defend both the rook and the f7 pawn? Yes. Yeah. No, it's wacky. I kind of really like it. I really like knight b8 here. That was the first thing I looked at, but I thought it was kind of too crazy. Ryan's thinking knight c1. Knight c1, huh? Knight c1 just to undefend. Because it is actually like 2D mate after the travel. So like knight c1, if the princess takes, which I don't think she would, then if you travel back into the past, well, okay, the king can exile, I suppose, because it's not mate, and because it's the princess isn't checking the king on the other. But like if the princess was here, then having a princess here for white would be 2D mate, right? Knight b8 might just be winning though. Okay, so he goes for the safe play here. Well, safe in that, you're not overextending and you're getting another attacker onto the f7 pawn. Like you really want to play knight takes f7 here, right? Wow, okay. Cirtus is, listen, he's not going down without a fight. He's got about 60% less time on his clock. But he's probably not worried about it because he's up a bishop in a very open board state in a game of princess. So I think you misread rook c1. Dude, I misread rook c1 in like 20 ways. Not only did I think... Isn't that fucking hilarious? Okay, not only did I think you were talking about the knight, which is the wrong piece, and not only was I on the wrong file, you said C and I looked at D, it's also the opposite side of the board. This is the 8th rank, not the 1st. So I don't know what I just momentarily was smoking for like an instant. But holy fuck, listen, we're back to reality. I thought there was some wacky like knight here, and then you force, like if one of these two pieces take, then you get like the rook over, or if the princess takes, then you get a travel that maybe wins the game, which maybe is the like a play, but wait, what? Okay, so if the princess moves here, then this wins the game. Except it doesn't, because this happens immediately. So this is forced only move now. And then after rook takes here, wow, that's mate. Holy fuck. Wow, I didn't see this. Oh, dude, I knew that I thought that moving this bishop was sus as fuck. Because it's because right after he forms the battery, you're undefending C1. Like, seriously? But holy shit. That's just GG. That was so good. Wow, well done by the knight. Dude, I actually lost in exactly this way. I forget what game it was. I think maybe, I don't remember. I think it was my 5D Chess League final game, maybe against QXYZPK, something like that. But the knight here, and then the rook back rank is Jesus Christ, dude, that was really good. King exile next turn. King can't travel because he's on his only move, and then this is GG. Oh yeah, it's not, but he checks and you can't both capture, and you know, because then the rook capture just wins you the game. Here is hard mate. This rook checks the king in the past. Wow, Cirtus with the alt f4, dude. Wow, what a game. Oh, heartbreaking for Cirtus because there were so many ideas there. Like as soon as he went up the bishop, he was low on time. He was trying to capitalize on his material advantage. He thought he was safe. I think that the princess battery should have tipped him off. Like it felt like moving the bishop off of d2 was drastically weakening, but to be fair, it wasn't super clear why. Like immediately. And Dreamer just saw it, man. Dreamer just saw it there. I suppose there was the issue where if you didn't move the bishop and Dreamer traded his knight into it, you can't then capture with the king. You can't recapture because then the princess just moves to c2, and that's and that's, or d2 c2. I forget which file we were on. But then the princess mates because it's defended by the. So actually, maybe that was unavoidable. I don't know. I'd be surprised if it was unavoidable. But wow, hats off to Dreamer, man. Both princess games were convincing, to say the least. I really liked Cirtus's. I think I was super skeptical of Cirtus's approach at the beginning. I think with like sort of perfect defensive play, it was still really fine for Dreamer, and he followed his instincts, like discounting the sort of like offensive options that Cirtus had. But I mean, listen, we're not all like perfect. Who knows what perfect play means in 5D chess? And, you know, you can only play as good as is possible for you under time pressure. And it worked. Like he really opened himself up for a lot of sort of offensive ideas there. And he sort of pushed the advantage. It looked like he really had a lot going for him, but then Dreamer expertly rebutted, I think, in a way that I found really impressive. Those were really good games. GG Dreamer. Well played. Those were fantastic games. Very well done. Congrats on making it to the finals here. Congrats on Cirtus for making it to top 4, by the way, which is no mean feat. That's for goddamn sure. Is it enough for Dreamer to take number 1, like on the 2100? Possibly. Was Cirtus just better if he castled at some point? I don't know. Dreamer, instead of sacking the bishop on d2, did you consider pulling the bishop back to d7? Or sorry, to d8 rather, to enable the rook to capture if the knight captured the pawn on c6. Did you see that and decide against it, or did you not consider doing that? That's all I want to know. Because up until that point, I thought that you were just like better and that you had like a solid position. It wasn't until I saw that you sort of like were forced into the sack that I thought, okay, hold up. I mean, it worked out anyway, obviously, but which is very well done, very well converted in the end there. But I think if it wasn't possible to go bishop d7 there, well, after knight takes e6, knight takes c8, jump in at the same time. Yeah, but if you go bishop d8, then if knight takes c6, you just capture with the rook and the knight can't travel if it's dead, right? At the same time, knight takes e7 are fatal threats. No, I'm saying like before knight takes e6, like instead of sacking the bishop, like you could have not allowed knight takes c6 by playing bishop d8 to prevent the diagonal back to the king from being a thing. You know what I'm saying? I suppose if you don't think about it, but no, because you're thinking about the knight takes c6 threat the entire time, right? So yeah, after you take, then it's kind of, after you allow the take, then it's an issue. But I don't know if Cirtus was better if he just castled at some point. Maybe. But like then you give Dreamer the opportunity to, it's not like he had that much time, right? Because he was like pushing his advantage. The only reason he had the advantage was that he was like forcing his tempo advantage onto Dreamer. Oh, before knight takes c6, explanation is very simple. I completely oversaw that capture. Okay, fair enough. That's all I was wondering. Okay. Wow, those were good games. We saw some top tier 5D chess here today, man. That was really good. Wow. Congrats to both players. Congrats to Dreamer. We'll be seeing him in the finals, which probably will be casting as well. We'll be commentating over that. And we'll see. What does the bracket look like? Let's do a quick